So today we're going to talk about the Celtic Irish Saint Bridget.
Ooh, that's a wicked looking.
Bridget, or Bridget with a T, either one, lived probably from 451 to 525. And she's referred to as St. Bridget of Kildare because there was also a Swedish St. Bridget a couple centuries later. There are multiple, depending on how Gaelic your English is. Bridget, here's all the various spellings, or bride, or she's referred to as Mary of the Gales. She was highly honored among the Celtic and Irish people as one of the most important saints of Ireland. And so if you see Kilbride, that means Church of Bridget. Just like Kilpatrick means Church of Patrick. So Kil is a Gaelic word meaning church. Just like Kirk is a German word meaning church. So anytime you see Kirk or Kil in the beginning of a name, you know that's church of whatever. So she was a nun and an abbess. She founded several convents, actually held the rank of bishop, and was venerated as a saint soon after her death.
We sure went backwards when we could have a female bishop in the year 4 something.
Yeah.
And then we had to quit for whatever reason.
Well, that's the thing, the ancient Celtic church never looked at, because the church was established on the British Isles even before Rome invaded. And certainly before the Roman Catholic Church took over. There were several centuries, like 7 or 8 centuries of Christianity there, and they didn't have women in ordained positions. It wasn't as common as men, but they were there. And you're right, we lost that, but it was a part of the older Celtic culture. Women had more freedom. Women were landowners and judges and positions of leadership. So it was not even thought of as anything out of the ordinary. Of course, women, priests and bishops, they have all kinds of, in society, have all kinds of equal authority with men. It wasn't even questioned that they wouldn't have equal authority with men, equal land ownership and so forth. But of course, the Roman and Western society influence as they invaded the British Isles, pushed that stuff backwards. But yeah, during that era, it wouldn't even be questioned. It's just women are leaders just like men are leaders. There's not really a distinction in terms of authority or power of a woman versus a man. Now, of course, if we're going to talk about St. Bridget, we have to think about the Celtic goddess. There are, some people think, well, there was St. Bridget a real person, and did they just adapt the Celtic goddess Bridget? It's the same Bridget, who is an important part of the Irish pantheon of Celtic deities. But there's plenty of evidence to say that she was actually named after the British goddess. Bridget, the Celtic goddess among the pagans and druids of the time, was a very popular goddess. And you can see the word roots of her name, meaning high one or exalted one, or fiery arrow, depending on which line of Gaelic you're looking at. Because the goddess was a fire goddess, so she's always depicted with flaming red hair, and as you see, her name probably means fiery arrow, brio, sagheed.
What is she holding?
Flame.
Oh, okay.
Because
I couldn't quite figure it out.
Yeah, because that's the Celtic goddess.
Right.
So the thing is, Bridget, the actual,
The cross.
oh yeah, that's part of the, that cross is there. That's the
County.
Bridget's cross. She, if I can get my highlighter up here. I'm trying to get my highlighter up.
Yeah, she was holding it in the other picture too. That's what led me to ask.
Yeah, right up here. Yeah, on both sides. Yeah, actually, we'll look at, there's a story about that I'll tell you. But she's one of her legends about Saint Bridget. So Bridget's mother was a Christian and her father was a pagan. And so her mother was Braca. And legend has it both her mother and Bridget herself were both baptized by Saint Patrick. And her father's name was Dubthat. He was a chieftain in Leinster and a pagan. So she had grown up with both religions, actually. Her mother was a slave, and so Bridget was born into slavery. And according to legend, when the chieftain Dubthac, who had her mother as a slave, found out she was pregnant, she sold him off to a Druid landowner. She grew up for the first 10 years of her life being raised by her mother as a Christian, and then she got sent back to her father at the age of 10, and then she was educated by the Druids. So she grew up with both pagan education and Christian education, ultimately choosing to follow the Christian path. She was particularly enamored with St. Patrick's preaching that helped her make that decision to follow the Christian path instead of the Druid. So there are, some people want to say, well, was she a mythical person? Was she really real? Or was she just the Christianity moving into the region and adapting the things that are there and Christianizing them and making up this mythical person? But I think there's too much evidence to say that she was not a mythical person. So many churches were named after her very early on, right after her supposed era of living. And stories written about her just soon after her death. It would take quite an unbelievable conspiracy to have created this person. So if you ever hear stories about, well, she wasn't really a real person, she was just the goddess who was Christianized, I think that's all bunk. So she really existed in the 5th century. And she had a major influence at that time. She had a reputation as never refusing any poor beggar knocking at her rich father Dubthac's door, giving them milk or flour or whatever essentials they needed, which of course her father wasn't crazy about. And eventually he said, well, I'm going to give her away. I'm going to try to marry her off. And he brought her to another king to try to get her married off. And the story goes that while this meeting was going on, Bridget gave away her father's jeweled sword to a beggar so he could barter it for food. And the king, the other king he was trying to marry her off to, was a Christian and saw that story and said, told Dubthac he should grant her freedom, saying that her merit before God is greater than ours, just commenting on her generosity and kindness that she had. But so she didn't want to get married. She wanted to join a convent, and she had pleaded with her father for years to go to a convent. He eventually gave in, but became more and more willing to do so as she continued to give away his stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that probably didn't go over so well.
Yeah, eventually she wore him down. So he gave her some land in Kildare to set up a convent. And the one of the legends about that is that he said, okay, I'll give you some land, but only as much as your cloak will cover, which obviously, is going to be a little tiny hut.
Yeah.
The miracle is she laid her cloak down and it covered several acres. I'm assuming that's legend, but that's how she ended up with several acres to start her first abbey.
Yeah.
And she did start a convent around the year 470, which was Kildare Abbey. And it was for nuns and monks. It was a co-ed monastery.
Huh.
Oh,
Again, looking at our ancient Celtic culture that didn't as much separate men from women in their abilities and rights. And the word Kildare is from the Celtic Kildare, meaning Church of the Oak, because she had built her own cell under a large oak tree. It's actually the first part of that monastery.
There's,
So one of the stories about her too is about this cross that you all notice on her picture. And she had founded a school of art, included metalwork and illumination, as in the illuminated texts, with those big fancy lettering and drawings of the scriptures. The school produced a book called the Book of Kildare, which was lost about 3 centuries ago, but there are references to it that you see in literature. Apparently it was like the Book of Kells. It was very ornate and very beautiful, and had been referred to. Unfortunately, was lost somewhere along the way.
Yes, some rich benefactor has it in his library and passed it
Maybe it'd be
down.
nice to have it discovered someday, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
So the story behind St. Bridget's cross, which you see here, is she was at the sickbed of a dying pagan chieftain, and his servants had summoned her there in hopes that she would calm his restless spirit, because she was well known to have a calming effect on people, and she was well respected in the community. And she was telling the chieftain the story of Jesus on the cross, picking up rushes off the floor, and she made this cross as you see here. And then the chieftain believed in it and asked to be baptized before he died. So that became the tradition of this, making this cross, stylized cross that you see here out of a bunch of reeds. Kind of not unlike taking our palm leaves after Palm Sunday and making a cross.
Yeah.
yeah.
Although more
I think it would be a
Celtic,
fabulous.
more of a Celtic flair. What's that?
I think it would be a fabulous class for anybody interested at St. Luke's once we get back together and can get in board hall with tables to have a class and make these.
Yeah, right. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah.
That would be neat.
Yeah, very cool. St. Bridget, and as well as the pagan goddess Bridget, were both associated with wells, holy wells. And there are wells all over Ireland that are attributed to her. And they were used for baptizing. And this is one of them. This is the wells in Foghart, Ireland, which is supposedly her birthplace. And it's obviously still there. In Foghart, County Louth. It's commonly believed that the waters of the holy wells have curative powers. And so there's a practice still to this day that always has been a practice of dipping a rag in the water, in particular to cure eye ailments. Because there was one of her stories was about a miracle of her healing blindness with water.
Oh, yes.
So you dip the water and the rag in the water and tie it to a nearby tree.
Look at the tree behind there.
Yeah,
at the right. Yeah.
right, with all those rags all over it. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Was the dome over the well just artistic, just
Typical of the time.
I don't
typical
know.
of the time or typical of her? Or
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. Maybe
make it easy to find?
So those sites that are all over Ireland still, obviously, as you can see, are still frequented as little mini pilgrimages.
Yeah.
There's a couple other examples of wells.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember where those are, but I'm sure would be fun to that would be an interesting pilgrimage. Go see the wells of
Say Bridget.
across Ireland, you know.
That would be.
And you can see this, the one on the left also has a bunch of rags on the tree.
Mm-hmm.
The one on the right is just really, really pretty.
With the statuary,
Yeah, it's well maintained wherever it is.
Mm-hmm.
but it looks like it's just out in the fields. I mean, from in the background.
A lot of them,
Probably there could be a church there because I'm seeing on the left back, there's looks like gravestones.
mm-hmm.
So this is probably a churchyard. And there's a structure behind to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of these wells are out there in the middle of nowhere. And like you said, a lot of them are associated with churches, of course. So has it St. Bridget was died at age 75 in the year 525, same day she was born, February 1st, which is why that's her feast day. She was placed in a jeweled casket and buried at a tomb and a high altar at her abbey that she had built. However, like many artifacts and relics during the Viking invasions became threatened. And because of the Norse invaders, she was exhumed in 835 and placed to rest at the same place as St. Patrick and St. Columba. So they were all their remains in the same place at Downpatrick. But then her,
Oh,
yeah, I know, right? Her skull was extracted and taken by 3 knights to the Holy Land. However, they never made it to the Holy Land. They never.
Why were they doing that?
I don't know. Why did people do things at 835?
That's rude.
It is, isn't it?
Sounds pretty heady to me. Heady.
Mm.
Don't know why they were doing it, but they never made it past Lisbon, Portugal. And those 3 knights and her skull are at a church in Lisbon.
Oh.
So you can visit her in Ireland, and you can go visit her in Portugal.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, golly. Mm.
I'll bet those knights took her head thinking that she would protect them on their journeys.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is the church in Portugal. It's the St. John the Baptist Church at Lumiere. And they're in that church is a little chapel where the 3 knights are buried and her skull in that jar.
Mm.
As you saw, though, it's just like part of the skull. It's not even the entire skull. And actually, part of the skull was later returned in 1929. A part of the skull was brought back to Ireland by the Cardinal of Lisbon.
part of it.
Oh, dear.
Oh,
Why couldn't they just bring the whole thing?
I,
Put it back where it belongs.
because the church wanted their own special.
I know.
Hang on to it.
The one they stole.
She may be more well traveled after her death than when real.
This trucking around with people's bodies, that's just rude.
I don't understand it either.
Well, there's that church here in Louisville that's got the embalmed, whoever they are, in glass-sided coffins up at the front of the church. So while you're there to worship, one of the Catholic churches, do you remember?
St. Martin of Tours.
That's it.
Is
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
And all of my Catholic
Who's
friends
up there?
growing up, when they were little kids, they would say, we got to go to the church and see the bodies. Like, what? It's terrible.
Well, in our European travels, Veronica and I have seen that a few times.
In a glass coffin, so you can see the whole, what all's there. Of
You know, I
course,
don't want to look through a glass wall and see a saint who died 400 years ago. I
no.
don't think it would be very enjoyable.
Maybe they want to see you, Dave.
Thanks, but
Well, that's it. They would scare
Who is
scare the
it?
kids in church and tell them you have to be quiet because he'll turn his head and look at you and things like that, So children would sit there
Hey, Dave, who's
transfixed.
we had Father Dreckman
Who's
for that.
involved? Dave, do you know who's involved in St. Martin of Tours?
Would
Do you know the individual? It's not he.
No, it's not
Who's
St.
involved?
Martin.
It's the church.
I think my brother-in-law told me it was like local bishops or something who had but clearly, a couple hundred years old. So
Yeah, I don't know. That's fascinating. All right. So, well, that's it for St. Bridget. We're going to talk about Augustina Canterbury next. However, I think
on the icon of Bridget, we were noting her cloak over the brown, her monastic robes, her monastic outfit, and the cloak is green. So the miracle of the cloak that grew, the green grass of Ireland, and so that it gained land from her pagan father.
right.
You make that up.
No, we're interpreting what we're seeing. And that other, the picture of the pagan Bridget with the fire, there was a big spear there along her shoulder in the back here. Look along the,
Oh yeah. I didn't notice that before.
over her right shoulder, but in the background behind her hair, there's St. Bridget's cross worked into the background.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
That woman looks like a movie star.
With those green eyes and that red hair and beautiful face, how many people would have fallen to their knees and converted instantly?
I would have.
Is this where
Bought tickets for the movie.
the idea that red-haired women are fiery and stuff like that? Does that come from?
Well, what do you think?
That's just the fact of nature.
Oh, they are.
While we're interpreting the picture, look on the opposite side to the spear. It's greenery. Now, I don't know if that's a particular plant that has significance, but that's
Poison ivy, I think.
well,
Poison ivy.
I'll give you peace.
Don't mess with a red-haired woman. You get stabbed with a spear or burnt or get poison ivy.
well, that's not ivy leaves. That looks like the what is it, laurel or for peace?
Laurel.
So she can give you war or she can give you peace.
Yeah.
Right.
I found something out on St. Martin of Tours. It says
Who are those bodies in the church?
they are Saint Magnus, a Roman centurion and martyr, and Saint Benosa, a Roman virgin and martyr. And
Oh
they
my God.
arrived, so there's one at the front and one at the back of church originally. I don't know if they're both that way now.
Yeah.
Really old.
Well, I'm going to love you and leave you.
Okay, Peter.
Get ready. We're not meeting next week, right?
Correct.
Right.
We
Right.
can
I think it's Easter.
So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
We've
See
been
you,
debating,
Peter.
gonna get a leg of lamb or a little lamb hock or something.
Yeah.
Lamb. There you
Lamb.
go. That does-
Right,
Well.
Peter?
Ken is preaching today.